The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, after the summer that these Liberals have had, even the Prime Minister must admit that he's not worth the cost. 8 years after he promised to make housing more affordable, he doubled the cost, doubled the rent, doubled mortgage payments, doubled the needed down payment. Then he said housing is not his job, and then he panicked when he plummeted in the polls and recycled promises that he'd broken 6 years earlier. Mr. Speaker, it took him 8 years to cause this housing hell. How long will it take to fix it?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, we said we'd work with municipalities to get housing built faster, and that's exactly what we're doing right across the country, including, for example, with the City of London, where we've got a deal done that fast-tracks the creation of over 2,000 additional housing units over the next 3 years, builds thousands more in the years to come. We're doing this by cutting red tape, fixing outdated zoning policies, and building more homes faster. This is our first deal, but I promise, not the last.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, he's building bureaucracy, not building homes. In fact, his inflationary deficits drive up interest rates, according to former Liberal Finance Minister John Manley. And that ensures that it's harder not only to buy homes, but to build them. Today, we got the devastating news that not only are we not increasing home building was down in August, 18 months after his so-called accelerator was brought into place. So when will the Prime Minister realize that he's not worth the cost, get out of the way, and build homes, not bureaucracy?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, the opposition leaders' bickering won't help get houses built. Our plan does. The Minister of Housing wrote the Mayor of Calgary offering to partner with the city if they made necessary changes for more affordable housing. And just this Saturday, the City of Calgary approved a plan for reducing zoning red tape and building housing by public transit. This is a step in the right direction, and we know together we can build more apartments for students to rent and more homes for families to grow in.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, all he has delivered is an economy that built fewer homes last year than were built in 1972.
Wow.
And this year, housing construction is expected to drop further by 32%. Data from August showed that home building was down again. His inflationary deficits drive up interest rates, which make it harder for builders to finance their construction and harder for Canadians to afford a mortgage. So what will he finally do what he promised to do 8 years ago, and that is balance the budget to bring down interest rates and inflation?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We're focused on delivering real results, while the leader opposite is focused on empty slogans and picking fights. In fact, when he was in charge of housing, he bungled projects like the Toronto Line 1 extension, which to this day has no housing near a number of its stations. In contrast, we are actually linking public transit dollars to apartments and housing density, and we're doing so without the Conservative plan to restrict access to abortion, to deny the impact of climate change, and put more assault weapons in our streets.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie.
Okay. I just want to remind the honourable members, the ones who used to sit way down there and now are over here, I can see you now as well as hear you.
Crime, chaos, and disorder. This is the Prime Minister's legacy after 8 years of this NDP Liberal government. Violent crime up 39%. Vancouver homicides up 55%. BC's London Drugs reports a 500% increase in violence in their stores. Vancouver's JJ Coffee Bean Roasters has closed for good due to crime. Canadians are living in fear, businesses are closing, and the new Justice Minister says it's all in their heads. Vancouver's Light Up Chinatown Festival ended in a triple stabbing by an accused who had stabbed his own teenage daughter to death. Celebration turned into fear and tragedy. On top of this, the out-of-control release of government-funded free hard drugs. Overdose is the leading cause of death among BC youth. We need jail, not bail, for violent repeat offenders. Mandatory prison time for violent crimes. Treatment and recovery for those struggling with addictions. Common sense, not nonsense. Let's bring it home.
Mr. Speaker, it has been said about leaders that many communicate but few connect. The tremendous address by the Leader of the Opposition about hope and home a couple of weeks ago connected with Canadians from coast to coast, so much so that even the Prime Minister lifted lines from it. Home has been described as both a place of origin and a place of destiny, a familiar and safe place, and Canadians are feeling truly homesick. They're lost somewhere between where they once were and where they hope to be. After 8 long years of this tired Liberal NDP government, they find themselves in a strange place where crime is on the rise, the cost of living are soaring, and the dream of home ownership is out of reach. Canadians know that something has changed, and it's not them. Canadians are longing for a place called home. Long and dark as Canada's night may be, I have hope that morning will dawn again in this country, and with it the realization that our potential is still greater than our perils. A common sense Conservative government will bring home that promise for all Canadians. For you, for me, for all of us, let's bring it home!
The NDP Liberal carbon tax on farmers who grow the food and the tax on truckers who ship the food is a tax on people who buy the food, and they want to quadruple the tax. The Conservative leader will axe the tax so that you pay less and bring home more, so that you pay less on gas, groceries, and home heating. Carbon tax 1 will add over 45 cents a litre to diesel fuel, and carbon tax 2 will add 16 cents more plus HST. And by 2030, farmers and truckers will pay an extra 69 cents per litre and carbon taxes for fuel that they must buy. Well, newsflash, food doesn't transport itself to the grocery store shelves. A grocer in Dawson City, Yukon told me that he pays an over 94% surcharge on top of the regular cost to get his groceries to the store. And after 8 years of this NDP Liberal government, half of Canadians are living paycheck to paycheck, and this government keeps raising taxes. The Prime Minister is not worth the cost. Conservatives will axe the tax so you pay less and bring home more.
Mr. Speaker, this summer all in this House have been inundated by messages from Canadians, Atlantic Canadians, Nova Scotians, and to me, most particularly residents of the counties of Cumberland, Colchester in Nova Scotia, who are in dire straits because of the punishing carbon tax. After 8 years of this NDP Liberal government, it is clear that Canadians can no longer afford to feed themselves, house themselves, and if they are lucky enough to have a dwelling, to heat it. The number of calls, emails, and letters with respect to the inability to afford to live is staggering. As a family physician for 26 years, I have never seen or heard of this amount of desperation in the lives of Canadians. This Liberal Prime Minister is asking more from Canadians than they can afford to pay. This Liberal Prime Minister is not worth the cost. It's time to axe the carbon tax. Hear, hear.